all know now, he sure gave a lot over the course of his years.
He sure did, George, and we're starting to see reaction pour in on social media from a number of celebrities. I actually just saw William Shatner tweet that it's a very sad day and that he is sorry to hear about the loss of Alex Trebek. Have you spoken with any other celebrities who may have been close to Alex? Have you seen anything, and do you know anything about tributes? Of course, granted, I know that this is sudden news.
I think what you're going to see over the course of this day is an extraordinary amount of tributes. Remember, he also did Celebrity Jeopardy over the years and made friends with some pretty big stars who would step in to that show and try to raise money for charity. So that'll be coming. I will certainly be talking to my friend Ruta Lee later today, because Ruta knew him for many years and I think recently had a meal with him. So Alex was still doing stuff, and I think in the last couple of weeks, so I don't know how fast this downturn happened, but you know, they have not been shying away from any of the facts about his health, so I'm sure we'll know as more information comes out later today.
And George, part of his appeal, I think, was just the constant presence, the constant steadiness through his entire career, right until the very end. And I think people just liked having that in their lives. Is that fair to say?
I think you're absolutely right there, because he knew that it gave us also a lot of comfort watching that show. And I know that it wasn't always easy for him. There were times that when he was going through some of this cancer treatment in between shows, he would go back into his dressing room, and he had said that he would lie down in pain and sometimes curl up. But then, in that old showbiz adage of the show must go on, he would get up, pull himself together, and go on and tape another show. And you know, there was a kindness to him in public that I saw time and time again. And even when my own father-in-law died, I emailed him and asked if I could get some kind of a statement to read at my father-in-law's funeral, because he had once tried out for Jeopardy and was Alex's biggest fan and would stop everything every night to watch Jeopardy. And Alex wrote me back this beautiful statement that I was able to read at his memorial. And it meant so much to my father-in-law's wife and to his family that this man that my father-in-law idolized would take the time to write something so polished and loving that it really was a beautiful moment. And I think he did that, I'm sure, whenever he met someone in public. He was not the type of person to turn away. He knew that those folks watched him on a nightly basis and cared about Jeopardy and cared about him. And I think we saw, whenever I posted anything on social media over the last many months about Alex Trebek, there were so many likes and hearts and comments about him staying strong. So I think that we know he was a beloved figure in entertainment history, and for all the right reasons.
And George, that story is beautiful, and it really does speak to the character of the man we've all, I think, come to know and love. We've been watching him on TV for decades, longer than I've been around, and I actually just tweeted that some of my fondest memories with my grandmother sitting at home on the couch watching Jeopardy. It was just a routine. It was comforting to see him on.
And a show that connected generations, and you were able to share in ways that you normally wouldn't, and he was that force that kind of brought it all together. We do have some celebrities tweeting about Alex Trebek. I think we have William Shatner, if we can put that on the screen, the former star of Star Trek. Very sorry to hear the news about Alex Trebek. Condolences to his family. A lot of people responding to the sad news that he has now passed away.
And just to bring our viewers in, if you're just turning on ABC7 right now, we have learned that Alex Trebek has died at the age of 80. You may remember back in March of 2019, Alex announced that he had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he'd been very open and very transparent about his diagnosis and his treatment. And he just recently, in the last few months, did a story with ABC News where he had been talking about how appreciative he's been of the people who have come out and told him how loved he is.
Yeah, and just so matter of fact of his condition, which is hard to imagine anybody doing other than Alex Trebek, because it just seems that's how he's been his whole life with us. When he's joined us on Jeopardy, it was just the facts, and here's where we are, and he was sharing, and now he's sharing that fact about his life, and he just did it so gracefully, I guess, George. It just never seemed to skip a beat.
I don't think he did skip a beat. It's really interesting because I would watch that show thinking, how did he get those questions and answers right all the time? Some of those pronunciations are pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And I don't think they stop and stop and stop as they're shooting that show all the time. He just had that finesse that doesn't exist in a lot of people who appear on camera, and an ease and a calm, and I think that calm is why we really enjoyed him so much, because we might be nervous watching whether or not someone might get that answer right, or if we knew whether or not we were going to be correct. But Alex had that steadiness about him that I think was very powerful.
And whoever steps into that role has really big shoes to fill. I don't know if Alex Trebek had any say in who will be his replacement. Had you heard of that, George?
Well, I know that once upon a time, and I'm not big in the sports world, John may know this, but he had recommended someone who was the voice of a hockey team, maybe the local team. And I know that there were some other people that were interested, but that was the person that he thought would do a good job in following in his footsteps. And I think he knew that whoever would take over for him would have to deal with people saying, and making those comparisons to Alex's way of working and whoever might fill those shoes.
Yeah, talk